saying, trust me on that issue, you go to a third-party store. You say, let me tell you a story about this owner over here. Let me tell you a story about this owner over here. Let me tell you one of the most amazing, miraculous things that I've seen right here at Sunday River up in the sales office. Evidently, a couple of years ago, they ran a contest, which is very clever of these folks here at Sunday River. They ran a contest, and it was an RCI exchange contest. And they asked for photographs and letters of the most spectacular, wonderful, greatest RCI exchange that their owners had ever taken. And they gave them some kind of a wonderful prize. I think it was a couple of nights stay here at the hotel, or whatever it was. They got several hundred responses. People went out of their way. They took photographs and blew them up to 5x7 and put beautiful frames around them. One lady wrote out her entire letter in calligraphy. They were on their company letterheads. They took the 5 or 6 or 7 of them, I don't know if they're still on the wall up there, I haven't been to the office yet. They took the 5 or 6 or 7 of the absolutely the best, most spectacular responses. And they framed them, put them right up there on the wall in the sales area. They took the other 100 of them, put them into a book. And those salespeople sit up there, and when somebody asks a question about whether they can go here or whether they can go there or what else can you do with this product or whatever, they don't say, let me assure you, you will have fun. Here's what they say. They go like this. Oh, look, oh, good, I'm glad you asked. Here's Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. Here's what they say. How do you convince people? Using the third-party testimonials. Let's get one thing straight. I find a little bit of confusion all across our industry with salespeople that I think is very easy. It's easy for you to misunderstand this, but it's very easy to correct it too. It's really understanding what a third-party story is. If the story happened to you, if you're talking to me and the story happened to you, that's a first-party story. If the story happened to me, that's a second-party story. If the story happened to somebody else who's not anywhere near us, that's a third-party story. I'll tell you what stories they're not interested in. Of the 3 stories, which stories is your customer not interested in? They're not interested in the first-party story. They're not really interested in where you went on vacation or what you did or what you think. They're mightily interested in the second-party stories, which become their first-party stories. Am I confusing you? They become their first-party stories. And by way of documentation, the best documentation in the world is the third-party stories. Now I want you to know, when we say that salespeople tell third-party stories don't mean any old story. They mean stories applying to a third person. And you talk about the importance of third-party stories, and you come back to a sales organization sometime later, and a salesperson says, I'm using all kinds of third-party stories. Let me hear one. Let me tell you about the time when I went on vacation. That's not a third-party story. So let's just get that straight. How do you make up people's minds? You give them reasons to say yes. Their reasons, not your reasons. This is for your benefit. This is for your own good. People buy for their reasons, not for your reasons. Let me tell you a quick little story before I move on. When I arrived at Orange Lake Country Club in July of 1991, 1/2 of the 86 salespeople were below a 10% closing average. I went into training the very next day. If you were at 10% or below, no, 12% or below, you were required to be at that training. If you were above 12%, it was optional. John Pasquale came over. He was at about 12 or 13%. It was an optional exercise for him. He did not have to go through that. He took one thing away from that training session. When I said people buy for their reasons, they don't buy for your reasons. He came back a couple of days later. He's all excited. He told me this story. He said, you know, I'm relatively successful. I got a 12% closing average. I'm making about $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. That's not bad. However, I want to do better. But let me tell you what I believe. I believe that this resort is a family resort, and no one could deny that. Many activities for children. It is a wonderful family experience. Now, to me, that's what's important about this resort. He said, I was talking to a couple, I was talking about the family doing this, and I was talking about the family doing that. First of all, he's talking too much. He's telling them what they're interested in. And I'm looking at them, and there's nothing there. There's a glaze coming over their eyes, and they're not with it. The sales interview is one-sided. They're not participating, and it is mindless because they're not interested. And he said, your words came back to me, and it said, they buy for their reasons, they don't buy for my reasons. And I remembered some things that they had told me. I took a chance. I didn't know whether it was going to work or not, but I figured, what the heck, this thing's going down the tubes anyway. I don't have anything to lose. I changed my strategy right in mid-sentence. And I stopped talking about vacationing with the kids. I stopped talking about the wonderful family experiences, and I started to talk about sitting in a hot tub with a glass of champagne and a romantic experience and a second honeymoon. And the glaze came over their eyes, and sparkle started to come to their eyes, and she reached under the table and squeezed his hand, meaning her husband's, not John's. And all of a sudden, they got energized. And they saw something here for them, and they purchased. And he's been doing that ever since.